All right. Welcome to my little corner of the virtual universe connected to a very real person, a very real place, a very vulnerable place. And I wanted to just begin with talking about ancestral healing. I have a video that I already put out that kind of goes over genealogy and starting the journey of locating ancestors through genealogy research, all for the purpose of ancestral healing. And then that brings up a whole bunch of things like, what is ancestral healing exactly? How do you do ancestral healing? What is a practical, real way of ancestral healing and not like this vague, big thing? What is my ancestors and not this vague, big thing? And so I wanted to break it down, talk about my view of ancestral healing based off of the things that I've read, experiences, scientific information, all of the above, to talk about setting up an ancestral altar and then what to do at the ancestral altar, and also some things that I feel like isn't talked about enough, or maybe I'm just not aware of how much it's talked about, but I will go through that as well. So everything starts with a story, right? We come across things based off of stories. And lately I've been reflecting on how much my spiritual journey has this deep root in a moment from when I was in 7th grade. I attended Cleveland School of the Arts, woo woo, a performing arts school, and that year we were introduced to James Weldon Johnson, The Creation. And that is a poem that describes God creating the earth. And so the first few lines is, and God stepped out on space and he looked around and said, I'm lonely. I'll make me a world. And then it goes into a whole bunch of stuff. But that moment kind of sparked the thing for me of God has emotions. God was lonely and God made the universe, the world, all of existence, this unexplainable design of a creation, all because God did not want to experience loneliness. And as I grew, forgot about it, remembered it, came back to it. And also, like, rest in peace to Mr. Hickson, who was the person that planted this in me. I have really realized how much the universe is created in a way where we can never truly be lonely. We might be alone, we might be in solitude, but loneliness does not truly exist in the universe. You are never alone. You are never stuck in a particular environment or energy, and it's a beautiful thing. And I feel like one of those aspects of how God makes sure we are not lonely is the way that our ancestors work in the spiritual and physical realm of things. So, ancestral healing, what is it? At its core, ancestral healing is ancestral veneration. It is showing respect and honor to those who came before us, those who had laid prayers down, petitions down, those who have strived to make the most of their life when they were in this physical world, to love and to care and to be there for your lineage, for themselves, for the community at large. And when we begin to show gratitude and respect for our ancestors, we begin to heal things within ourselves. We begin to grow awareness around our gifts. We become able to unlock different blessings that we have that are all connected to that ancestral lineage. Now, understanding some of the dynamics when it comes to our ancestry. And I know a lot of people, it's been coming more of a common thing of people knowing, but just in case you don't know, we were in the wombs of our grandmothers. Our grandmother had all of her eggs, which included our mothers, and our mother had all of her eggs. So by the time we were born, we actually experienced a lot of the living experience of our grandmother and our mother. So that also means our mother experienced our grandmother and our great grandmother, and our grandmother experienced our great grandmother and our great great grandmother. That first 5 generations, I feel like, are very, very crucial in understanding what is kind of like that immediate aura of energy that we are in, right? That is where a lot of the issues of scarcity, different things of different fears that we may have, limitation blocks that we have, are really heightened within those first 5 generations. But our ancestries go so much deeper and further than 5 generations. There are ancestors who, no matter how much research you do, genealogy work, you will never know their names. You will never know the fullness of their story. They are the ancient ancestors who would literally spend their days looking up at the stars and skies and being aligned with nature and with the world and with their community. And we are all connected and synced into that before oppression and colonization and all the isms. There was a point in time where there were more peace, where there were more understanding about the spirit of God. And so that wisdom is still somewhere deep down within all of us. And that is also how, with ancestral healing, you don't always have to be fully conscious that you're doing it. There's a lot of people who are breaking generational curses without even thinking about it. Like, they're just living and they're being and they're existing, because it is no real separation between you and your ancestors. Like, it just is. But when you really purposely and intentionally tap in with them, that opens up a whole new world for yourself, because these are people who are assigned to you. And again, they go beyond the 5 generations that you can think of. They go beyond, like for my family being a Black woman, it goes beyond slavery. It goes beyond all of these things that history has a good recollection of. It's something further than that. And how do I tap into that? How do I begin to remember that? How do I begin to embrace that? And a lot of that is through ancestral healing, which is honoring their lives, honoring what is, honoring nature around us, so that you are kind of getting back to the root of things. Another thing that I wanted to point out is how our ancestors are also deeply rooted in our root chakras energy. So when we are babies, our first energy wheel of the chakra system that develops is our root chakra. And that root chakra holds a lot of ancestral baggage. So just like the scientists have studied that, you know, we were in our grandmother's wombs, and those generations of experiences impacts the DNA. It also impacts your energy wheels within yourself. So a part of ancestral healing is also doing root chakra work. And when you do that root chakra work, when you begin to show respect and interact with your ancestors, doors begin to open up. But it is also remembering that the ultimate source, the ultimate container of all of this is God, is source, is universe, whatever word you want to say. I don't say universe because I'm like, God created the universe and it's like God with a capital G. But I know people have different things with language, and I feel like language is a barrier. Like sometimes it's like, just close your eyes, pick it to be whichever word that you know what I'm talking about. You know the energy of what I'm talking about. Even doing my ancestral work helped me get past the limitations of my vocabulary that I had at the time, or the box that I put God in, even because I thought God was in a box based off of my upbringing. But in that same breath, being taught that God is beyond anything we could understand. And nobody has everything figured out with the universe. Ancestral healing is a way to connect into that. It is a way to connect into that and increase your intuitive gifts, increase your own confidence. It builds you up, and then it also unlocks blessings and gifts for you and generations to come. One of the things that gets started with ancestral healing, it is always recommended to start with some type of ancestral altar. Now, this altar is not necessarily for worship. The altar is really like, this is the place that you ancestors are welcome to come and interact with me. This is the boundary that I would like to set of, one, me addressing you respectfully of, this is your space, this is your home, and I will come and visit you here, and having boundaries so that like I can sleep well and you're not like bombarding me in dreams unless I welcome that, or I can kind of have time to take in what I have learned, or take time to prepare for what I want to come to you about. Having a seat for them is like one of the first ways of showing respect for your ancestors. And people do this without realizing it. Like, I remember when I first was learning about ancestral altars, and I was doing ancestral healing, I was doing my genealogy, and then I ended up finding a older relative who ended up having pictures of a lot of the names that I was writing down in my genealogy research. He had all of this in his home, and he had this wall of all of the pictures of the ancestors, and it was only the deceased ancestors was on this one particular wall. There were plants and stuff around. There was a cup of water on the side. He had little like tea like decorative things, and I'm like, you got an altar? And he was like, what? And I was like, never mind. But it was an ancestor altar, but he didn't realize it. But he was just like, this is where the people who have passed, this is where I keep them. I'm like, yeah, it's an ancestor altar. Like in my head, but I'm like, this is beautiful. But again, language is a barrier sometimes. But your altar, it can be pictures if you have pictures. In the beginning, I didn't have a lot of pictures, so I just had names on paper. And I also was kind of scared when I first began because I grew up very much Christian, Baptist, Pentecostal, all of the things. So I was like, oh God, am I doing this right? But I kept going back to like, what is my intentions? What is source? Like, God, you know my heart. If this something I'm not supposed to do, show me. And the more that I did it, the more things opened up. And I'm like, okay, maybe I am on the right path. Thank you, God. Because that's the ultimate source that I'm going to. And like my ancestors, whether you want to say your angels, oh, my deceased grandmother is my guardian angel, my ancestors, all this, yes, 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 and yes. When you have your altar, you want something that represents your ancestors, whether it's a picture, whether it's names. Also, take the time to feel that they want their pictures up, and feel them kind of direct you on your altar. A bit different, but a unified starting point is pictures or names, having a representation of the four elements. So that's earth, fire, water, air. A cool glass of water, because most of our bodies is made out of water. water is a vessel of communication. For my ancestors, we had quite the journey across the water, so water is a channel of communication. The fire, when you light the candle, you can say, this is a light that I am welcoming my benevolent ancestors to come and share this space with me, to commune with me, to whatever it is, to do work with me. If you have things that you're going to be working on, to have them work with you. If you're doing root work, that's something that you can ask them to come in, ask for their protection, ask for their guidance. Light an incense for air. And then for earth, it can be a plant, it can be some crystals or stones, things that resonate, that's still connected to earth. You can also include, if you have, items that they used or enjoyed. So I had a lot of seamstresses in my family, so I like to have like a piece of fabric or a little spoon of thread or needle and thread or things like that. And so when you put these items together and you have your ancestor altar, you want to make sure you build a routine. And for me, I always looked at it as picking up the phone, you dial the number, you wait for the phone to ring, you say, hello, may I speak with, and then you go into a conversation. When the conversation is over, it's okay, love you, goodbye, and you hang up the phone. So what is your ritual? What is your cue that I am now picking up the phone and I am listening, I am being receptive? So for me, for example, in the mornings, I make 2 cups of coffee and I put 1 coffee on my altar and I drink the other, and I offer the coffee that I put on the altar. I offer the coffee to the east, to the west, to the north, and to the south. Then I place it on. I light the candle. I say a prayer. Also ushering in my benevolent ancestors, because our ancestors are like people. They have personalities, they have emotions, they have feelings, and you want to make sure that you are speaking with good energy, that you are speaking with those who are willing and able to be of aid to you. Be specific of who you want to talk to. Still show compassion to all, but you can just say, like at this moment, this point in time, I am open to interacting with the benevolent ancestors who are willing to interact with me. I honor you all. I'm thankful for all of your journeys. And and then you can offer things up. You can place flowers on your altar as an offering. You want to give gifts to your ancestors. And the one thing I will also say is, don't go in immediately like, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do that? You don't just pray to God because you asking for stuff all the time. Just show up. Just be respectful. Just show love. Just show, I remember you. I'm still saying your name. I'm still sharing your story. I still feel your energy, and I'm thankful. And that's it. Don't always have your hand out, because if you really think about it, for me, when my grandmother was in the physical world, I didn't have to ask her for stuff a lot of the times. I love being around her. I love showing up for her. And so there'll be times I come over there and she's like, oh, I saw this and I wanted to give this to you. I wanted to be this blessing. I wanted to give you this gift. There are times you are going to just be blessed and gifted because you are respecting your ancestors. You are respecting those who came before you. You are honoring their stories. And in doing that work, a lot of times too, that healing can overlap into your living relatives and your living family. Because if you have a difficult relationship, because I had a difficult relationship at different points with my mother and my father for different reasons, but we had some rocky moments. And the more I did my ancestral work, the more empathy was developed. But at the same time, I was also practicing boundaries about certain things, not taking things personal or acting like it's something that, like, I don't have to participate in everybody's mess. And that opened up a lot for me. One, arts and craft, because I am a artistic person. I am an artist. I'm a creative. there are pedigree charts that shows your genealogy, and a lot of times people think of it in a linear chart that you can see. There's also a pedigree wheel that when I was playing with my watercolors, I start realizing that it reminded me a lot of a mandala art piece. And so the center circle is yourself. The next ring is your parents. The next ring is your grandparents. The next ring is your great grandparents, and so on and so forth. So I did this mandala circle for like the first 5 generations. And I split it up too, so that like the first circle was just one piece. The next one was 2. The next one was 4. The next one was 8. The next one was 16. Because that's how ancestral math works. It doubles the number with each generation. And I first wrote the names of everybody that I knew. And I was looking at it, and there's a section 2 that's empty because I don't know my maternal grandfather's father's name. So I don't know really what happens with that lineage. I haven't found that out yet. So I decided not to focus on names because I'm like, there's plenty of names I'm not going to know. So I began to look up the meaning of each name in my lineage and my family tree. And so then the mandala began to have these names, meanings. And so it was like energy. And so my first name is Letitia, which is joy. And my middle name is Dolores, which I'm named after my grandmother. And Dolores means sorrow, Lady of Sorrows. So I have joy and Lady of Sorrows, but I also have sorrows in that first 3 container of generations that impacts my DNA the most. And those who know my story, there has been a lot of sorrow that I felt, a lot of fights with my mental health, my mental wellness. And even when I looked further, it's a lot of stuff with the sea and with water. And then I have like my 2 water babies, my Cancer, my Pisces. And I kind of like go into my own little journey of thoughts and meditations just even from looking at that wheel. So I would encourage and suggest that you make a circle, get a big circle, and you want it to equate to 5 sections that just get smaller and smaller, like making a target and knowing that you represent the center. Look up the meanings of your parents' names, and that'll be the second ring. Then look up the meaning of your grandparents, your great grandparents, your great great grandparents. And then just take a look at what it looks like all around. I really enjoyed just the therapy of using the watercolor to create the mandala art. And that wheel can be something that you place on your ancestor altar. That can be a place where you're like, hey, this is what I realized. These are some energies or some things that have been spoken over you as the ancestors that has been embedded, because saying someone's name is speaking something on them. These names have been spoken over and over and over and over on this person. And what does that manifest to? When I looked up my mother's name, her name means worthy to be praised. So it's like the Lady of Sorrow had a daughter that was worthy to be praised, that then had the daughter that was joy. What? Is that a word? That's a word. So I encourage you to do that exploration. If you do end up making a mandala art piece that represents your lineage, that demonstrates their names, I would love to hear the names of the meanings that you have in your family. How does that make you feel? And hear any feedback you may have and things that you would like to see in the future. The next video will be having more discussions around getting in tune with the cycles, getting in sync with the moons, getting in sync with the changing of the seasons, and getting in alignment with your ancestral work is a way that helps sharpens your own intuitive gifts and knowledge, and know that you know the answers. They are deeply rooted inside of you, and it is about building that trust within yourself, building your own individual connection through discipline and joyful interactions with spirit within and around you. I wish you many blessings on your journey. Thank you for sharing this space in this virtual world with me, and I hope to feel your energy the next video. Peace.